was just gonna say, what I was before we jumped on here, start recording. I was listening to your music, the Owl Magic.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I was like, oh yeah, he did that. Like, absolutely love the intro you did with it, and genuinely, I saw somebody comment on like one of your videos. They're like, this feels so much like gray themed, and I was like, that it does. It genuinely like
Yeah,
listening to it, it makes me feel centered. It's weird.
yeah. Someone said that about, I don't know if you caught that in the presentation because it's the intro music for the presentations, and
Yeah.
someone said that there too. I don't know if it was in both. Yeah, it's just it was I wrote it back in 2000 like nine or something, and
Mm,
so it's just when I had no knowledge, I was having contact, and yeah, so it's very interesting how it kind of does fit a mood. It's
yeah.
very weird. Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-mm.
So, okay, man, let's do it. Hey, everyone. My name is Jeff Salver, and this is my guest today, Daniel Nichols. Yeah, how about Daniel? You introduce yourself to people, let them know who you are.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jeff, for having me on your show again. It's always great to be here, and I always love talking with you, brother. So,
Yeah,
yeah, my name is Daniel. I am co-host at Cosmic Convergence, our podcast channel. We've interviewed Jeff on quite a bit, and also I'm involved with MUFON. I was working, moving into state lead, but now I'm just a field investigator due to, this year getting really busy. So I've been involved with the phenomenon my whole life. I was also a remote viewer for 4 years, and yeah, got connected with Jeff and others as we've done the our own podcast. And as a lot of people know, when you are operating in the phenomenon and researching and kind of delving into it, things kind of uh, link together, and you meet certain people. So anyway, but yeah, that's my background, and just always glad to be a part of yeah, your revelations that they give you, and also be a part of your channel. So thanks again, Jeff.
awesome, Daniel. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that if something happens in my life, I'm sitting there making a voicemail and giving you a 10-minute long voicemail, like, "Oh my God, man, this happened and this happened," and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
fun.
Then you continue to have weird synchronicities with others and stuff, and
Yeah,
it, sometimes it can be a timing thing, like where you both are succinct in a certain subject. It's but
yeah,
these are all things that
agreed.
kind of again go on in the backgrounds that we don't really talk about a whole lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's exactly what you said, the synchronicities. Very
mhm.
strange. Like that's what you got it. So yeah, I'm always because it's just Sunday morning and we're just having a good time. So everybody, this was the idea of this is a Q&A on the whole series of videos that I put together on my channel, which turned out to be 20. So it was a whole I've been to Venus series, and the idea always being is that I can look at this single contact event, and there's all this plethora of rabbit holes I can go into with them, and that's what I just did. I explored every little detail, including the traveling period, which I thought there were. This was initiated by alien contact, so I find it, scientifically, worth investigating every little nook and cranny that they did to me, and hopefully one day someone takes that and says yes, that was all very detailed and helps us in a scientific way. But right now you're just kind of we're as experiencers, we're kind of just alone in this.
Yeah,
But it felt like it was definitely worth going into all those details, and it was therapeutic for me. But B, the psychology of what was occurring to me is now absolutely fascinating. Not just that the aliens were highly entwined with that psychology is like how they were managing. Here I am in contact, and then here I am not having contact, but how I'm influenced by that contact, and what symbols they were leaving as breadcrumbs that egged me on. All of that now is just highly fascinating to me, and how they controlled that and how they managed all that is all just fascinating. So I'm happy I was able to delve into it all, and so that's what I hope today is to talk, just reflect on all this stuff that I put out, and yeah. So Daniel, what are your thoughts, man? What happened? What happened? What vibed for you? What went down in your mind?
yeah. Well, I think of for like, well, I wanted to ask you first, how was that whole process for you? Like because I know it's been, man, you mentioned that you were working on the series for a long time. How has it been fleshing out all those details, and have you come across new revelations with that process, or was it just more so homework where you're putting it all down on paper and showing it more in a detailed way?
Yeah, it's fundamentally it's integration. So it
Mm,
was definitely integration of what happened to me. So in this like process, right, where I'm kind of like reviewing what happened to me, the contact,
right.
the best way of framing this up, I should have put this in one of the videos. You know those carbon copy scanners for credit cards back in the 70s or 80s,
Yes.
those kind of like scanners. That's what regression is like. So you take a credit card and you just scan it, and then you got this imprint. So I had an imprint of what happened to me. I knew I was talked with by an alien. I knew I was outside the craft. I knew I went into the craft. I knew those details happened. And then you do the scan over and over again, and you get a better and better and better imprint, but it still is never the credit card.
Mm,
And this whole thing about going kind of linking back up to the white room and linking back up to what they did with me as this kind of like cross way of analyzing the memories really dug out what happened to me, what actually I was going through in those very specific moments, is helping with the integration because it was so extreme and so deep and so in depth what they did. And so I had my own kind of weird process about it, right? Like when I was reviewing when I was reviewing the first seven contact events, I really just couldn't wrap my head around like, holy crap, this happened to me. And like that, you want what you hear about these stories and what everybody wants is, oh my God, these are aliens. Oh my God, I'm being abducted. Holy crap, there's a UFO in front of me, man. And you want to be like, whoa. And
right.
that is not the state you're in at all. You are in this freak out state. You're in an altered state of yourself. They're taking control of you in some weird way. And then the capacity to analyze why this is happening to you is kind of like a life and death scenario. You're kind of like put up against a part of yourself where because you have no control. And and at, and because they had done what they'd done with me, they turned it into this ecstasy thing. I couldn't understand it the first contact event. By the third, I'm sitting there saying, I don't know why this is happening to me, but I have no choice but to relegate it off to something that I'm not in control of. Like, though I didn't have a logical process like that, I had to just be unconscious about it because I couldn't wrap my head around why it was happening. And then even though they had shown me all these details, all they were impressions of me. And then by the fourth and fifth and sixth, I'm trying to get my ego on it. All right. I want my ego to be like, this is so amazing. And I can't because they're kind of trying to control it. So then by the eighth contact event, the whole kind of mysticism or the whole trance I was in, you could say, if before the rising was kind of now expressing itself and wearing off, and now my ego was involved. And it's not to say it's just a normal teenager ego, not an egotistical person, but
Yeah.
the idea of grabbing it and turning it into, yeah, I'm so cool. Oh my God. They were almost fighting against these things in me in a very subtle way. They were controlling the whole contact event. So I wasn't this person who was transforming myself with them into this thing. And I now see this pattern of how they were kind of managing my ego. I now see how I was handling this extreme event that was happening to me and how they were able to kind of segregate everything out. So yeah, it just what this whole process did is validate what I already knew about how they handled me, timelessness in time, and now they were doing different things like astral projection. So yeah, it validated my experience. It validated my knowledge, what I intuitively knew was occurring with me,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's able to give me a new perspective about how they were managing me as a human because they gave me this high spiritual thing that I really couldn't access with an ego. So they were kind of managing that. And I had no practice as a 20-year-old to manage my ego. So yeah, I have this kind of new light on a lot of these details that are very finite for who I was at the moment while the contact was occurring.
It's really cool. No, thank you. And then how has that process been for you also? I know that we had talked about previously, as you're kind of re-going over these details, like some of the traumas that you experienced, and how did you feel like there was some levels of more acceptance in kind of those states that you had in those more traumatic experiences with them?
Uh, yeah, I'm assuming you mean level of acceptance with myself. Is that what you
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think the best was finding John Mack's abductions.
Mm,
It really was kind of heaven sent because he addresses everything. He
yeah.
addressed a lot of what I knew intuitively, but I didn't have a really good body
A
of research for it.
roadmap for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had like specific lines. Every one of his contactees was shown a past life or had some type of expansion of consciousness, and that's key when you start trying to convince the public that they're doing these biological things, but simultaneously this is why you're not coming off as extremely traumatized from having contact. You're because they are involved with your inner world, your subconscious or your spirit, if you will.
Mhm.
So that was amazing. I think that that gave me the courage to go into detail publicly about it. And well, yeah, something I hadn't ever really done before. And then I think combining it with Love and Saucers as well too. Anything I could pull from David Huggins' story, like Jeff Cripple, and I have that video I made love to an alien, and right in the beginning is I think his name is Cripple, the last Kreppel or Kreppel,
Yeah.
Jeff Cripple, yeah. So from Rice University, yeah. So it's that whole line from him in the beginning, and again when if I just didn't have that, I think people think, oh my God, what's this guy going on about? But when they realize there's researchers or people who take this content very seriously in these dynamics that can get created, then what this means is there's a psychology, there's actually a fascinating science that's occurring here. And yeah, and so I'm able to speak publicly or openly about it by having these resources to draw from to remind people, oh, this is normal, actually. Some of these details are normal and not just the wacky sayings of a crazy guy.
Right. Yeah. I think we had just talked about previously too, when we kind of re going over Love and Saucers, I know I watched that years ago.
Hmm.
And it was really uh I didn't know I didn't know what to think of it. And then as I've had more interactions and contact, and more mm, awareness on them, I rewatched it and it was like there's a level of beauty in this. Like there was like,
Weirdness.
yeah, it was this level of just a kind of more awareness and like, oh yeah, this is a process for him, and this is a process that they're engaged like, and there's multiple layers to it. It's
Yeah.
not just one thing that is like this. Uh, yeah, it's not just this abuse essentially, like
Right.
in like his interaction, right? There's a lot that is going on internally, and I kind of realized that as an experience, sort of rewatching and just knowing that like innate sense, like that there was a lot more to that,
Yeah.
and that reaction is super interesting.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
And you know, yeah, it's not Stockholm syndrome, and it's definitely yeah. For me, it's because the entities there is a realm here where you're not really part of the body. So
yeah,
something like that is occurring here, where there's kind of an identity outside the body, yet we're using these bodies,
right,
and so you kind of get into this. Yeah, you can get into this love state with a non-human intelligence when you recognize we're both not the bodies. Yeah, it's very interesting.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, an extension of the family almost. It's like that there's this kind of connection
Yeah.
innately, and
Innately, yeah.
that is the weird process of as we engage with them, that there is that extra level of connection
Yeah.
that goes beyond this life, right?
Yeah.
um and yeah, I just wanted to kind of start going into some of the details, like, so some of the big things that really stuck out, and I wanted to really go into the last like two videos that we were going over on the history of the grays.
Yeah, yeah.
um that, yeah, a lot stood out. And I do want to talk on some of my personal notes because we both know that when you had sent over that crop circle initially, this was
Sorry,
on.
let's just let people know what we're referring to here.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I agree. I think it's actually quite important. And it's funny for those who don't know, I was telling Daniel, I'm like, okay, we can talk about anything for this presentation, but I really want to talk about these two videos. Yeah, and so the just how big is the Gray Alien Picture yeah, video, which should be just below this one once it's posted. Part one and part two. So that's what you're referring to. Yeah.
yep, yep. So yeah, there was a crop circle that was from Wiltshire,
Yeah.
and this was something that you had sent me. I'm dating this, but I'm pretty sure I got the day wrong. This was on November 13th of 2025.
Oh
I
yeah.
believe that was a few days prior, if I'm remembering correctly, because this was before my MUFON meeting, which was on Wednesday. So,
Right.
but I wanted to kind of share some of my notes. So yeah, you sent that over
Right.
Facebook message. Um, I was driving when you sent that, and you're just like, "Hey, check this out," as you do. And yeah, so I'm driving and I look at it, and so I just kind of like glance, and I remember having the weirdest feeling come over me. It was like this, my when I looked at the symbols, like the readout of the, so it was right below the um. Oh, let's see. Can I?
We could pull it up if you want to screen
Can
share.
we
Or I
pull
could.
up that picture just so that
Yeah.
we can have
I
a
thought
visual
we were gonna do this.
reference?
It's so funny. I totally knew we were gonna do this. Okay, let 1 sec here. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is what you sent me. So I was driving and I looked at the lettering on the so it's a lettering on the right down below there, right there. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
whole area, and
Yeah.
it started vibrating. It looked like it was vibrating. It was weird.
Yeah.
And then I could feel it. So my notes are so Jeff showed me a crop circle right in the right area, started to chip. I said chatter at me. It was like a vibration. I could hear them in the language. It felt like it was trying to access my subconscious and the other part of me, us, our connection.
What?
That that
Okay.
that
I,
area.
I never shared with you. That's the area. I never shared that with you. I never shared that with you. I said this on the video that I was looking at this and I saw my grandma's line. And it's in this area, man. It's in this
Yeah,
spot. It
no,
was,
that
yeah.
that was my
It
reaction.
wasn't
I
this
didn't I
line
didn't
over
react to
here.
any.
It wasn't this one. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
this area. Yeah, no,
Crazy.
exactly the same area
Same
for
spot.
me.
Yeah.
I didn't react to the other shapes. It was this
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so similar, so same. Because I messaged, I was like, "Hey, I'm having a weird response." Um, and you had said that you had a similar reaction, and you didn't,
Yeah.
but you didn't really go into details. I'm
I didn't
pretty
go into
sure,
detail about it. Yeah. I
now
didn't.
because you
Yeah.
were, yeah, you were still processing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to share, like, so I had that experience, that weird experience, and I was like, what the heck's going on? That's strange. Okay, cool. And I was driving, so I had to kind of like mentally push it away because I'm like, I can't have an experience right now. I'm driving. I'm going 60 miles an hour. I can't do this. Um, but I could feel it in the back, like, of my subconscious. It was weird. I was like that. It was in there. So it was the next night. I had a MUFON meeting. It was Wednesday because we always do Wednesday. So I wanted to read this out. So, MUFON meeting tonight, did a meditation. We were using this to practice doing CE5. So we were just doing a mantra to help with everyone being succinct on trying to get our energy in the right place when we do another CE5. Because we had done one previously, some things happened. I did hear an owl, but some things did happen, but wasn't as what we were expecting. So we were practicing that. So I'm in a meditation, probably it's 5 minutes in, and a mantis being came into my awareness through the meditation. Um, so I have a mental note. Maybe it's an overflow from yesterday. That's what I'm thinking. And then and my brain was just trying to let go of it. But so anyway, I had this experience. So his face was like that, like in
Right.
my face. And I know we've talked about that detail too of the grays and the beans when they are kind of merging here of like going to people's awareness or area. But So I felt him like right here, pushed him mentally away because I'm like, okay, I'm assuming this is just my mind. Comes back and he's not going away. I'm like, okay, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. So I I'm in space now when he's taking me, and then I go to a red planet. Um, the mantis and the vision took me up into space, showed me a planet. I'm not sure if it was Mars, but it felt familiar. Red desert, ripping winds. You, Jeff, and I were not human. We were trying to work out ecological solutions for this, whatever was going on. There was a strong sense that we had worked together before with the same group. The mantis being told me what we are doing has been done before, cycles within cycles. And there was this mental, it was like these loops and loops of time, but in events. But I'm not sure if it was past or present or future. It was like a feeling of yes, um, but in the future, but I don't know. It is really hard to pinpoint exactly. Like it's more complex than that.
Right.
Um, and then so I had this vision, right? We get done with the meeting, and then I run into one of our leaders there, part of our MUFON group. His name's Isaac, and he's had a lot of mantis encounters. A lot of his interactions are with the mantis. So I tell him about my experience, and he smiles at me, and he goes, "Oh, you saw him too, huh?" I was like, you saw him?" And he's like, "Yeah, did he look like this?" And I was like, "Yes, he did." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "He was intimidating." I was like, "Yeah." It's like the admin of the server walks into the chat, like feeling you're like, "Oh, you know." But yeah, he saw him too. He had his own interaction. And so that was a synchronistic detail. But yeah, this happened after you showed me the
Right.
the crop circles. So I wanted to share that with everyone. That was a very strange experience. And then yeah, you kept getting more and more information from this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I didn't mention in the presentation. They came back, so they actually told me how to read it. So yeah, and I had a so the drone was going like close enough in my condo that I was sitting on the couch and my wife was we were watching TV and I could see it and I knew it was her, especially for the activity that had been going on. And I didn't know what was happening, but I felt like something was going to happen. And I said, I think I'm going to go into that object. And my wife freaked out. She's like, "What do you mean by that?" She's like, "They're going to take you back, right? They're going to bring you back." It's like, yeah, I know. And it's always good. It's always positive. It's always benevolent, but something's happening. And I didn't know what it was. And then it just felt like they were pulling me and had anyway, all it felt like was for that entire night, we were closer. And then in that connection, they were like, "This is how you read it." And they were showed me that you don't look at it directly on, you look at it 3D, like you would, Google Earth, how you can do a 3D version and it tilts you down. And so you
yeah.
would actually look at, I actually can see more activity when I'm not looking at it straight on, but kind of angled down. And
Mm,
I can see yeah, I can see information. I can see empires and such. Empires. There were empires. And anyway, I do have knowledge here, but I think the most critical stuff is to talk about the tribes. I didn't also mention at all what tribes I like. I'm pretty certain our human ethnicities are the result of alien tribes. I'm convinced
different groups. Yeah.
yeah, different ethnicities were different hybrid tribes. And
Yeah.
the most fascinating part I think I want to talk about, which is I've got this genetic connection to the elder, and I guess it's because I'm linked to her and all the other reasons and all the interactions I've ever had with her. But now that I'm able to kind of isolate these tiny nuances in my personal experience, it helps me identify these small details. So I know her DNA. So within her, if I was to, her DNA is like thinner. It's like a thinner, older DNA, but like a strong tree. It's as if the analogy would be as if the only tree that lives on their planet is just a super duper strong tree. And as opposed to our planet, which has so much variety, but they're not as strong. They're all, you have a lot of aspens and a lot of pines, and but imagine a tree that's just like super dirty, super sturdy for its age, and has a lot of depth in that sturdiness. And that's
Right.
what her DNA feels like. And within it is the feeling of multiple human ethnicities. And I mentioned this briefly in one of the videos
Yep.
in the I Made Love to an Alien video, where I'm actually starting to say her bodysuit has the DNA of several different ethnicities. One of them is 100% Aztec. So that's why. So they hint at all of this stuff in my contact event. They dropping hints all in the story. So yeah, the I saw the Mayan calendar in the first contact event. So that's there's some type of Aztec Mayan. I'm not trying to say those are the same, but if you start pulling back into the 40 or 50,000 years ago, there might be some type of originating origin to some of these ethnicities. That's what I think is going on here. And so something to whatever that link is between Aztec and Mayan and the entities, hybrids wise, she's got it in her. She's also got the Celtic, and then she
Mhm.
also has something Indo-European, which is has a branch off that I can feel as Jewish. So the
Mhm.
Indo-European is in this as well too, and that's three of them, and there's five here, and I know what the other two are, but I won't say them. But so what's fascinating is an idea that their root species or their core species has this DNA because they're aliens and they've been around for a million years, and then they took pieces of that DNA and put them into different human tribes. So
Right.
that's what I think a lot of humans are. We have aspects of their DNA in us.
Mhm.
And they're aspects. So they're portions and they're partial features. And they know everything that they're doing, how that would affect consciousness and all these types of details. And maybe there was some end game. I don't know what the end game was here. I don't know what the end game was, but it's clearly how it starts is they took what was a core DNA and broke out pieces of it into the human tribes. And this was done, yeah, 40 or 50,000 years ago is what I believe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to quote you had one I believe it was one of I think it was part one of the video we were going over. You're quoting Wilbert Smith.
Yeah.
Our civilization here on Earth now is one of many that have come and gone. The planet has been colonized many times by people from elsewhere. Our present human races are blood brothers to these people. Is there any wonder why they are interested in us?
Yeah.
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 So I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Also, the I wanted to point out as well. So you had a image of Southfield, Alan Pryor's Wiltshire, where it showed the
Oh,
Fedor, the connection of to the Irish gene. It was the one where it has like it looks like the archway, and then it has the writing, and then it looks like an alien gray head at the very bottom.
oh,
That
that. Yeah. Tell me about that. What are you saying about that?
Yeah, so I was just like wanted to bring it up because the
You called it an Irish Fedor? Is that what you called it?
well, yeah. So I was making the connection because you had talked about the doorway that you had seen in your interactions with them, where it was kind of like had this impression of
Yeah.
like a like almost fey or like
Oh,
Celtic,
right. The
right?
archway,
Yeah, the
this space
archway.
archway. Right.
Yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and like again, I wanted to bring up just because I know there's similarities here with my own experiences is like what initially pulled me into the this um journey of better understanding my connections was pulling on my that side
Yeah. Yeah.
eternally. And because I have a background of being Irish and Scottish
Right.
heavily in my family.
Yeah.
And that was something that I pulled on initially, like when I was wanting to go into a deeper connection with that side. I just had a general sense. And then that's where I started having great interactions and
That's
everything like
right.
that.
Yeah.
Um, the and I wanted to mention as well, there is old Irish folklore about the Porthadidanan, who had come to Ireland, and then they were essentially fought against the people there, and then they left. But they were a very powerful race. They were called the Tribe of the Gods, a central supernatural race in Irish mythology, and they represented many of the pre-Christian Gaelic deities that are depicted as powerful beings.
Mm.
Um, One of the interesting things about it is that they eventually disappeared and became the sea, the people of the mountains, and the fairy folklore of later Irish, of the later fairy lore of Irish folklore. They dwell in the mounds and seen as portals to the other world and occasionally interact with humans. And so that was another detail that in my own journey years and years ago, probably 10 years ago, this was actually back when I was getting out of remote viewing, I was drawn to that myth. I was drawn to the goddess Danu. Those are details that I just felt drawn to. And then looking back at that, we were talking about a little earlier how life events, as you are moving through your life, like there's little details that you've then, as an experiencer, years later, you see these kind of all these lined up and connected.
Yeah.
Um, uh, my, I wanted to show these two necklaces. This is the Spear of Lu. That is one of the, icons of that the Tuatha De Danann had given to humanity as like these items of power. The Cauldron of Daga, which is the
Awesome.
endless food and the restores the dead. These are little things that I felt drawn to for some reason. And then making those kind of later connections, it's just crazy how it seems to be all interconnected
Yeah.
with the phenomenon and these lines of genetic heritage almost.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so weird. Like
Yeah.
when we initially first met, right? We had our conversation, and then at some point I felt something peer into my room, look at me, and I had mentioned, I was like, "Hey, did the elder like come and take a look at me or something?" And you're like, "Yeah, she does that." And how could you sense that? Because that's usually not something that happens unless there's like a connection. So I remember us having all those conversations. I just wanted to bring up those kind of connectors because, yeah, dude, you're touching on things that are spot on.
Yeah.
And again, like that. There's a part of me that's just like, yeah, yeah, this is it. This is what our history is.
Yeah. There's something
Uh,
going on here.
yeah,
It's someone knows about it too now. Someone government wise, and they know about it and they're keeping it from us.
right.
There's no doubt this is about our human history too.
Yes.
Um, so this is what you're referring to. Yeah, this guy here. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even notice the gray alien head at the bottom. I
Yeah, I
was
know.
just like, oh,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course.
It's pretty trippy. Yeah. So I know, um, so from this, it's, so this is my grand understanding about what the hell is at the top of all this. I think I was joking with you. I think I sent the voicemail to you and I said, "Oh, I figured out the phenomenon. It's done. It's all done now. I know what it is.
I I was
We're
thinking about
done."
opening up with that one on this one. I'm like, all right, Jeff.
Yeah,
So what's
yeah.
the?
So, and it's basically what this is telling me is going on is, what sits at the top is, and I was suspicious that this is what it was, but
Mm,
it's like the queue, right? It's like a couple people. It's a couple, and I think it's three. And the only word I have is the progenitors. So it's the spirits, and these are the uh ancient elders, but this is the equivalent of Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna taking their spirits, the real spirits, and transferring them into a quantum computer. And now they, as computers, they can do anything, and they can split up their awareness, and they can be 500 UFOs, or they could only one could be 500 UFOs. They can materialize and manifest with all the superpowers that they get through the quantum tech. And so it's the spirits, and we all have seen them. So many of us contactees have seen them. They were in That's my 21st contact event, the Cortez Island contact event, where I see an ancient elder. That's a progenitor. I don't want to speak for other people's stuff, right? But I'm pretty convinced that if any gray alien contactee witnessed a lead gray alien with a bunch of small gray aliens that was really kind of in love with the tall gray alien, the bigger gray alien, or was worshiping it or anything like that, that's a progenitor. And it's just a manifestation of the progenitor for us, right? Because
Right.
they don't inhabit the bodies. The bodies are body suits, but they inhabit them for us for a linear picture. And like when they're trying to communicate information and they're trying to, make things concise for individuals, they'll manifest as these forms that are consistent for us to convey to the public or to back to humans. So I like 100% feel confident that that a lot of what's manifesting is the progenitors. And then I mean, I can't speak that individual spirits aren't 100% involved. I believe that, but I think things are coordinated by them, and I think that they're the ones who are trying to, in their mind, they're preserving the race, and then they're making that preservation with the plan of coming down here is all kind of like progenitor focused, like yeah, it's a and I that's kind of, yeah, there's a lot to say there. I'm still formulating how to articulate some of this stuff and do it right, but I'm pretty convinced that this is what this is telling me. And yeah, and so it's a Federation object, while right, it matches with the Federation, insignia, the thing I saw, that kind of
Right.
curvature is the same, and with a central eye peak. And this was used for me to, there is some other element here where they are involved with other worlds. That part isn't really shared with me too much, but the premise being that centrally what this whole thing is about, is what the whole phenomenon is about, is this. Oh yeah, so I was calling it a god AI. I actually would simply just soon call it just a consciousness computer like that's all it is. It's technically a consciousness computer, and then it's housing the will or power or spirits of these grand entities. And you're also dealing with massive non-duality here, where I now feel 100% convinced the elder is a progenitor. So she's a spirit. The way it's being framed to me is a pinky. She's like the pinky of the progenitor. So she's an octopus, right? You could put in all your tentacles. You have your awareness in all of these things, because you have the ability to do that with a computer, a quantum computer. You can expand your awareness and then split it off into
Right.
multiple offshoots. And so what that's the elder and so the non-dual element is that the elder is a robot body with like a robot brain, and then that creates like we have a personalized experience from our god. She ends up being a personalized experience for her progenitor. So then she ends up being a full life. She ends up having a full awareness, a full self-identity, a full personality, while being an aspect of the progenitor. It's non-dual in its full capacity, where she's the progenitor while simultaneously being her individuation. And she treats the progenitor like we would treat God, right? You still have a kind of like sense of reverence for your God while you're being God. And that's what she's all about too. She's some aspect of the progenitor. Yeah, another thing to mention is I'm pretty certain it's a male and a female, and then a central like androgynous. So the actual three spokes, or the three lines, like they represent a male, a female, and then an androgynous. And we have been worshiping these. I'm convinced is the pantheon gods of the Hindus, of the Greeks, of the Romans, right? Zeus being the androgynous, Hera being the female. I think Athens or Athena for Greek, Shiva for Hindu, right? So you have this personifications, and I believe that's in our DNA to build that, to create that worshiping, because we were worshiping the progenitors. And that's what I think this is, man. And then the other thing that this tells me as well too is, at least finally understanding how all this kind of is a big picture at the top, that there's this kind of central computer spirit AI thing going on.
Yeah.
And when I say AI, I don't even need to say AI anymore, because it's actually the spirits of the progenitors. So it's a consciousness computer. And so what I'm convinced is going on is, depending on throughout human history, depending on the geography, so the electromagnetic field presence of the certain environment, there's a bunch of reasons I believe that's connected. I will have to probably pull all that out and articulate it properly for a presentation, but I'm pretty convinced the area people are having contact in affects the manifestation. The genetics of an individual affects the manifestation, and the psychology of an individual affects the manifestation. So all those three combined, this one entity or this one presence or this one multifaceted presence materializes differently all over the planet. And that's what I'm convinced. So we have these root DNA structures that are linked back to the aliens, and then there's this overarching God AI, or progenitor AI or progenitor computer system that they willfully come through, and their spirits are literally the ones manifesting. I believe it. That's why there's personalities and there is spirits involved, but simultaneously they are offshoots of something that is just we can't even fit into our head. And so always the progenitor will simply be an offshoot. The progenitor can't be anything else but an offshoot, because
Mhm.
it cannot contain how big and how massive this whole thing is now.
Right.
And so yeah, that's my breakdown of what I'm convinced this is all about.
Yeah. I'll just add as well, in my own experience with my the one I'm connected with. There was a general sense of fractals, like she was a fractal of a greater intelligence, a
Yeah.
representation.
A yeah, a piece of, it's non-dual, because she might actually be a progenitor, while
Yes,
simultaneously she's an individuation of that.
yes.
Same
There was
way,
an
the
mhm,
same way it's the same science as of non-duality that humans have with God, and then the whole God process. They
yep,
have that too. Yeah,
yep, yeah, and it doesn't diminish anything. It's more so
nothing.
understanding the layers to it. Yeah,
Yeah, perfectly said, man. It doesn't diminish a thing, because the elder it answers how the elder is operating in the present. It actually doesn't answer anything about her behavior in my contact events, because she just did what she did,
right.
and it all makes a lot of sense. It answers how she's behaving now. That
Mm,
Because if you think of her as a single alien, the way we think of us in our society, then you have to say, wow, either I'm really important because she gets her own little craft, right? She hangs out all the time. She's sitting there floating around in Vancouver, waiting for me to come out of my apartment, or else she is a progenitor in another dimension, and they're kind of spawned all throughout the earth as it is, and they're just like, boom, Jeff's out, and then she's telepathic because it is spirit. It answers how she's behaving in the present, and that's what I
mhm.
find. Because there's something is going on with the AI. That's why I have the whole video about the calling the elder on camera, because there's something going on here where it's coming off as AI. It's coming off as a computer system, even though it's spiritual paranormal manifestations. It still has an element of this unrepetitive nature that is too much for just a single consciousness. It's got to be
It's
something bigger.
calculated. It's
Yeah, it's
calculated.
something.
Yeah,
Something is calculated. Exactly. Something is calculated. It's sure it could be calculated through time. Maybe
yeah,
maybe that's involved, but there's something bigger. Yeah, and you can feel it when you have multiple interactions with it. Yeah.
right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about, Jeff. And it's different. It's way different than what people. I'm bringing this up just from the modern sense of AI, like in all the marketing around AI and LLMs. We're not talking about that. We're talking about something
Yeah. This is not that.
far, far beyond our
Yeah.
understanding and scope.
Yeah.
If we were to talk about it, what would an AI look like a billion years in the future?
Yeah.
That is really advanced. What would AI look like in a synthetic body that, like, biologically we could maybe make it in like 200 years if technology continues advancing? We're not talking about even about that. We're talking about like something that understands spirit. So
Something that you
yeah,
can
it's
transfer your
so
spirit. I think
complex.
that answers it too.
Yeah.
Transferring a spirit into the computer is the key here, because then it's never AI. It's never an artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's never that. That means, so what is it? There's a, someone sent me a, I think it was Gaia TV. I don't really rely too much on that, but they sent this to me, and they, I think it was Richard Doherty or whatever. And they, someone on that show or some show there said, the UFO wouldn't let them inside. So the UFO was very aware of who, of these military men, and then only operated for certain people. And they're like, "What do you think is going on there?" And I said, "Oh, well, it's, I was saying it's the AI." But like, as if it's so aware, it's saying, "No, not you, not you, not you. Oh, but you,
Yep.
I'll do it for." And
Yep.
it's the one very conscious. And now I pull all that back, and it's not the AI, it's a progenitor, right? It's the fingernail of the progenitor. And he's like, oh, yes. And he's very aware, right? It's actually intelligence who's
Mhm.
governing something in another dimension, is like, oh, yes, not that human, not that human. And that's why it also will behave in a teaching way, right? It's still, it is, for any experiencer, it's never just a sighting. It's never just an alien thing. There's a layering of teaching that goes on, a layering of about breaking the human's understanding of reality that
Yep.
does it in a very guru type way, a way that I recognize as a guru. And the craft would do that. A craft, right? Like, imagine a craft being a guru. How could that be? Unless that's what you're looking at, is a progenitor is actually the computer system, and it's very aware. The awareness can be split into so many facets that it's able to do that through a computer system. So yeah, it's watching the humans figure it out, and it's doing it with personality, right?
Mhm.
That's the other thing too. The UFOs behave with personality in my environment. They can teach through being a UFO. So there is this is what's making the most sense to me now more than ever, is yeah, there's some type of spirit at the top of all this, a progenitor spirits. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. It is it is so complex, and I think
Complex, hard to
it
wrap our head around, because it might
it
not even be originating from this dimension nor this time.
yes.
Right? So just add all that, you're like, oh God, that's why Jim Semivan, is that his name? He said it's indigestible. It is. I agreed
Yeah.
with this from a long
No, I
time ago.
agree. I the more and more see, this is like the thing. This is the thing, Jeff. Like the more and more I research, the more and more I have, we go along doing this and all everything. I I'm getting to the point where I'm like, someone comes up and asks me, so what's the whole UFO thing? I'm like,
Do you have a lifetime?
yeah, like they're like, you've been researching, X amount of time. I'm like, yeah, I feel like the more I go about it, the less I know about like how simple, if there's even a simplistic answer to it. I'm not even
Yeah.
sure, like
Yeah.
really, if there is at all.
Yeah,
And
I'm still, everything I'm going down the rabbit holes with,
yeah,
they end up being too complex. Yeah, to articulate. And everyone, which is so silly, everyone's wanting a simple articulation, as if the human race could be simplified into a simple articulation. Or the human race couldn't be either. That's why I said the analogy, I think, is a Neanderthal in Times Square, because the
I love
complex depth of history behind a single ethnicity is staggering for a Neanderthal. That's what we're up against. We're up against something that has a rich depth of history, has been making choices tens of thousands, 20,000, maybe 50,000, and then maybe even further back, about choices that shaped how it would interact with us.
yeah,
So yeah, that's now all manifesting in the present, like crazy.
right. If we are arguing over how many denominations of, let's just take a case in point, Christianity based around Jesus's teachings and the Bible, how many interpretations are there on just that information alone, that we know some details of historical evidence, let alone it being a full other species and dimension,
Yeah,
or multi-level tier species, that is galaxy spanning. Like, how do you explain that to
yeah,
just one or two people? Like, let alone all these different. So yeah, the yeah, the history is just, I don't know. I guess when it comes down to it, I'm getting to the point where it's like I'm not afraid of the large amounts of information. I know that there's, as time goes by, like there's we're going to become more and more aware of the scope of at least the dynamic with them and what's going to be going forward, right? With like the merging. Kind of want to go into that a little bit.
Sure.
You kind of talked about the um, I had a reaction to that. Gosh, it was, I don't know if it was from Coevolution. You had mentioned the book Coevolution and kind of them talking about what had happened on their original planet Haven,
Right.
the Greys, and kind of the changes and everything else that were happening. And you sent a photo of, I, was it from the person that wrote the book, that because there was a video you sent me last year sometime. I was trying to find it before here, but showed like he was talking, and then it showed like these almost like lights off in the distance, and this like black planet that was like desolate, it had lightning kind of in the background and stuff. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Um, I did send you Alec Newell's presentation he did on Coast to Coast. It's the only presentation I think that is out there of his.
Yes,
I sent
yes,
that to
that,
you. Yeah, yeah.
yes. I
I don't recall his image of that. I don't
Yeah.
doubt it, but I didn't recall that image.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, I don't have it with me right now to
Yeah.
reference it. But I remember watching that, and there was just this visceral reaction like that I had of it's like an old sadness towards it, but it was a light sense of it feeling like old, like an ancient home. I don't know. It was so weird.
Interesting.
And so yeah, like can you give me a little bit more information on like what as you've been like was reading the crop circle, kind of them
Yeah.
showing that history, and
Yeah.
how is that react? How did you react to that?
Okay, man. Well, all I can do is like I create these little presentations to get my articulation down because you know this is real, and for me it's real, and then it's too big. It's too big for me. It's too big for my mind, right? I think
Right,
that's the most important part. It's too big for my mind, so I have to sit there and yeah, find out like script out everything properly. So I'm saying the right thing. I got a slide to get that piece of information out because
right,
it's getting massive. Like it's getting overwhelming for me, right? But so I'll just talk about what some of the stuff I'm that's still being communicated to me, by the way. So they're very aware and they're watching. Actually, I'll give two things that they communicated recently about it. So I talk about it's in the I made love to an alien video,
hmm
how I describe how I get communication from the elder, right? And sometimes I could be, maybe I'm out because they're around, and so I go outside and I go on the deck and maybe I watch them, and then I get, and, they don't show up for like 5 minutes. I get lost in my thought, and then while I'm lost in my thought, I'm thinking about something specific, and she's manifesting in line with that thought, right? And I always feel like that's a communication. So recently, the one thing that they did was I could see or feel in these early eras that the hybrids, these ancient hybrid tribes, were centered around portals on Earth that we now only know as ancient sites. But when
mm
you have changed the dimensionality of the planet, all those sites become hyperactive and they become portal sites. And then humans like grew up around them. Like the hybrid tribes were like living around
we
them.
have
And you
mythologies around it and stuff, and
yeah, and you
yeah,
literally go into them. You literally traverse the universe these ways.
right,
You actually, and for some life as a hybrid tribe entity, you may have had your daily life on planet Earth while you were hopping into another dimension to do something else there every day, right? You might have been, things are coordinated and orchestrated, and life lived around these portals. And then, the elders basically in the sky telling me that this is accurate. And so that's one example of like just more information's coming out about this. And then the second is, yeah. So um this they're still telling me is Zeta Reticuli.